Hi everyone, my name is Herkef and today we'll embark on yet another adventure in hardcore Minecraft. But as per usual, we've added a bit of a twist. Minecraft is a game that is rather unique in that you can alter the environment around you pretty much however you please, as it allows you to both break blocks as well as place them. But what if we were to remove one of them? As I have stated rather clearly in my previous videos, I have a tendency to make decisions that make my life significantly harder than it needs to be. Whether I do this due to a subpar level of intelligence or due to me being incredibly masochistic will probably remain a mystery for all eternity. But what I do know is that this is something that will continue with this video, as I have decided to attempt to beat Minecraft hardcore without mining. However, the immense level of stupidity of this challenge doesn't stop there. As some of you may be aware, the left mouse button actually has an additional function to that of mining, that being to hit things, which I assume many of you would agree is a rather convenient feature. But for this challenge, I will unbind the left mouse button completely, meaning that I won't be able to do either, and just like all my other hardcore challenges, I will be attempting this without using armor, as my life apparently wasn't already difficult enough. But without further ado, let's watch me bumble my way through this challenge, while simultaneously causing major damage to my mental health. So I got our adventure started by going into my key bindings and removing our ability to attack and destroy, meaning that I had successfully handicapped myself rather severely. I then got on to creating our hardcore world, where I left the seed blank. Once I had been gracefully and grandiloquently bestowed upon the universe, I started off by setting my render distance to max and started looking around in hopes of finding a village. And to you wondering, yes, I did absolutely use Google to find the word grandiloquently, as that was most certainly not a part of my caveman level vocabulary. But after having let the world pretty much completely load in and looked around my surroundings in a very action-packed and exciting manner, I was faced with the harsh reality that there was no village to be seen. Defeated, I started running in a random direction, as that is a strategy that usually works out. But now you might be wondering why I need to find a village. And my answer to that is that we needed a few things to tackle this rather silly and masochistic challenge. Those things include a crafting table, as we still need to make a bucket, and that meant that we needed an iron golem to get the iron to craft said bucket. We also need a fletcher, as bows and crossbows are the only weapons that we can actually use. So with that, our epic adventure to find a village was set afoot. But to my surprise, we managed to run into a shipwreck shortly after having set off, which was very epic, as they can hold iron, which we were in desperate need of. I therefore bolted in and decided to loot the chests that can only give you paper and its derivatives. So I grabbed a buried treasure map. I have absolutely no idea why I decided to do that, as I can't mine any blocks to find the treasure, rendering it completely useless. Just like yours truly. However, my dream of acquiring iron was crushed rather quickly, as it only gave us one piece of iron as well as iron nuggets, which I could craft into another piece. And once I had acquired said loot in a completely legal and ethical way, I noticed that I was down to 3 bars of hunger, which was a rather suboptimal situation. So in order to conserve my energy as much as possible, I decided to jump around for absolutely no reason at all. But shortly after having adopted the previously mentioned strategy to conserve my energy, I had managed to reach a small mound, from where I could have a look if I could spot any villages. Though my comment on the size of the mound may have been rather unfair, as it might have been cold. But anyways, we rather luckily managed to spot one, so I scuttled over to it with immense glee, as my seemingly imminent demise was postponed. And when I had arrived at the village, I broke into the homes of the locals in hopes of finding food, though that hope died rather quickly, as I only managed to find 2 chests. However, having my hope die is something I am rather accustomed to, so it wasn't too bad. But even though we had barely found any food, we did get a bucket, meaning that we now had the means to kill things, and that includes all meat-giving animals, so the disappointing volume of bread we found had become a non-issue, which was very epic. But as we had looted the village, it had become night, which was absolutely perfect. The reason why we wanted nighttime was because creepers have the ability to explode, which can break blocks, which in turn can drop their item counterparts. And this includes wood, which would be helpful enough to give me a slight boost of dopamine, which is something I am in desperate need of. So I ran up to a creeper and provoked it using my existence. And rather luckily, we did manage to get a couple pieces of wood on our first try, which was very nice. However, a couple pieces was most definitely not enough to satiate my immense and rather impressively high level of greed. So I continued provoking creepers to explode trees. Though, as I was trying to lure the creepers to a nearby tree to repeat my previous strategy, I started getting harassed by other mobs, which was very inconvenient. But as I had successfully made a creeper explode on our second tree, I got jumped by a couple spiders who almost ended my existence as I got down to half a heart, and since I had been incredibly gluttonous, I had already finished all the bread I had found in the village, meaning that I couldn't get my health back. So I made the executive decision to tactically retreat in a very heroic and brave fashion, in hopes of not getting my cheeks severely clapped. I then arrived at the village once more and broke into a random local's home to sleep through the night. And when I arose the next morning, I noticed that we had completely missed this house during our initial looting session, as I was blessed with an additional 3 pieces of bread. I then headed off once more with a new goal in mind, which was to find lava, preferably a lava pool, so that we would also have a spot for our nether portal. And rather luckily, I managed to find one rather shortly after having set off. So I picked up a bucket of lava with the plan of converting some of the local wildlife into our soon-to-be sustenance. But, rather unsurprisingly, I got outsmarted by a pig yet again, as I placed the lava on myself instead of the pig, leading to me being set on fire. Though even after that rather embarrassing turn of event, I continued the gathering of vessels of nourishment, and when the night came, I decided to continue the hunt for wood using the exact same strategy as before. However, at this point, we had been playing for well over half an hour and weren't even close to being able to go to the nether, so I decided to switch strategy to hopefully put an end to my misery and started looking for shipwrecks. But now you might be wondering why I needed shipwrecks, and the reason for this was that shipwrecks have a chance of having TNT. So the plan from here was to try to get my hands on TNT, as we could use it to break and obtain blocks including gravel, meaning we could get flint for our fletching table. I know, an absolutely genius and elaborate master plan, and rather luckily, we did manage to get our hands on 2 pieces of TNT from our second shipwreck, which I immediately used to blow up some sand as well as gravel in hopes of getting flint. However, after having used said TNT, I didn't get a single flint to drop. This made me think that gravel probably can't drop flint if blown up, so I decided to have another look around and managed to spot a ruined portal which has a chance of having flint in their chest. So I made my way over and discovered that my prayers had been heard and was greeted with a staggering 4 pieces of flint. This meant that we were one step closer to being able to go to the nether. I then made my way over to a village that I had found earlier in my search for shipwrecks and crafted myself a fletching table and placed it down in hopes of finding an energetic and ambitious unemployed villager that I could exploit financially. But as a villager took on the job, he decided to not trade arrows with me, which was rather inconvenient. So I crafted myself yet another fletching table to hopefully get the arrow trade. However, I rather quickly came to the incredibly rude realization that we didn't have any unemployed villagers left. I therefore deployed the incredibly productive and useful tactic that would surely solve all my problems. That tactic, of course, being to jump around and do absolutely nothing. And just like always, the tactic paid off as one of the baby villagers grew up, which was most certainly my plan all along and definitely didn't surprise me at all. I then converted him to a Fletcher and finally got the precious arrow trade, giving me a much needed boost to my will to live, though that boost in happy chemicals didn't last particularly long, as I noticed that I was 1 emerald off to buy a bow. So I ran over to a nearby cave and used my last piece of TNT to get coal, which I then traded to the local armorer. But with that, we were ready to take on the nether, as we had a shield as well as a bow and arrows. And into the nether I went. Then began the very exciting journey to find a nether fortress, which I was expecting to be just as fun and smooth as it always is. And rather unsurprisingly, that was most certainly the case, as I went on to spend 42 minutes and 16 seconds to find it. But when I arrived at the fortress, it went really smoothly, as I basically just spawn camped the blazes with my bow, and once having gotten all of the blaze rods I needed, along with some ethically acquired precious metals, I made my way back to the portal. Upon our return, I noticed that it was nighttime, which was very convenient, as we needed creepers to get our hands on gunpowder. So I proceeded to kill all the creepers I saw and undressed all sheeps as we were in desperate need of more blocks. I then used the acquired crusty carcass of creepers to craft the block that would most likely put you on the NCA watch list if attempted at home. That block was then used to blow a hole where I was hoping to unveil a buried treasure, but was sorely disappointed. So to cut my losses, I started a project of deforestation. And luckily, there was a dark oak forest relatively close to the village where we had set up shop, There were two reasons as to why this deforestation project was needed, and therefore ethical. In order to actually break blocks without mining, we had three options. First one would be a ghast. However, those don't spawn in the overworld and would be very annoying to transport. Second would be creepers, but this would potentially take a long time and inflict major damage to my mental well-being. Since this challenge had dealt enough damage to it already, I opted to explore other options, and that only left one final method, which was to use the aforementioned block that can most definitely get you arrested in a rather violent manner if made in real life. That of course being TNT, but as some of you may be aware, we're currently relying on manually killing creepers to get the TNT we've used so far, and since strongholds can generate at any Y level, we would potentially need over a stack to get to it. That meant that we needed over 5 stacks of gunpowder, which I most certainly wasn't going to do manually, and that's where the wood comes in. The plan was to grab enough wood to build a general mob farm, or as I like to call it, industrial for-profit genocide facilities to get our slimy and greedy hands on enough gunpowder to turn our dream involving demolition into reality. But that wasn't the only purpose we had for the wood, as it would also allow us to trade to get emeralds through the Fletchers to in turn buy ender pearls. I know, cutting-edge planning, right? Though once I had gathered a respectable amount of wood, I got to building the mob farm, which would most definitely solve all of our problems. It might even save my failing marriage. That was a joke. I don't have a wife, as I have yet to find someone masochistic enough to marry me. But anyways, here's a time lapse. And once we had rather epically built the mob farm, I went AFK overnight to hopefully wake up to a respectable amount of gunpowder. I then returned to just that, meaning that we only had one final step to head over to the Stronghold, that being to acquire ender pearls. And rather conveniently, we also got a bunch of rotten flesh from our AFK session, which I used to level up the local village cleric and rob him for all he's worth. But I still didn't have enough emeralds to get any pearls, so I made my way back and resumed our very ethical deforestation mission to get my hands on some more sticks. And with that, we had successfully gotten enough ender pearls to head over to the Stronghold, which was very epic, as this challenge had already taken multiple days to record, so seeing the light at the end of the tunnel was rather exciting. We then got on to locating the Stronghold, which was just as fun and exciting as it always is. Though when we arrived, I was faced with the jarring reality that we would have to deal with water during our excavation, which was rather suboptimal. And just to top it all off, I noticed that I had also run out of food, which was an issue I had to tend to before blowing my way down to the Stronghold. And once that had been dealt with, I got onto the excavation. This is when I realized I had actually done something clever for once, as I had crafted over 2 stacks of TNT, which was a smart move, as the Stronghold was well into deep slate level. From there, I made my way into the Stronghold, located the portal and jumped into it. Then began the epic and riveting dragon fight. But this time, I couldn't use my normal tactic, which involves spanking the dragon to death, so I had to take it out using my bow. I was then showered with the dragon's balls, meaning that we had successfully beaten the challenge. However, just like we did in the last 2 challenges, I decided to go and grab myself a pair of wings. But unlike our other challenges, I had to look for over half an hour to find an end city, which was rather lame, though I did manage to eventually snag one and make my way back to the main island. And there we have it, I beat Minecraft hardcore without mining or hitting. I hope you enjoyed the ride as much as I did. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did, and let me know if there are any challenges you would like to see me take on. But anyways, I'll see you in the next one.